Hi there, YouTubers. Robert Llewellyn here. Little update. I'm trying not to say I'm really busy at the beginning of my little updates, but I'm really busy. Heard a really good thing though the other day. If you want to be happy for a day, get drunk. If you want to be happy for 5 years, get married. If you want to be happy for life, get a garden. And I really like that because that sort of makes sense to me. I've had really good fun. Last weekend, I had a weekend off, the whole weekend off. Fantastic. That's not going to happen again for a while. And I did a lot of gardening, which is great. And so I've got my carrots in, got my spuds in, got my French beans and my beetroots in. Very nice. Anyway, enough about carrots. I'm right in the middle of doing a new series for Channel 5 called Top Trumps. Do you know the card game Top Trumps? Younger people may know this game, which is where you get a card and it's got, you've got your battleship and it weighs 65,000 tons, and the other one does that, but this one goes 400 miles without refueling, that one fires bigger guns, and this blah, blah, blah. We're not doing battleships, but we're doing different machines from around the world that, which one is best. So it's myself and another as yet to be appointed presenter doing this show, and I've done 3 so far. It's been great fun, really good fun. Slightly scary, some of them. Some of them coming up are very scary, and I'm deciding that I've got to be very brave. That's quite tough. Yeah, no, I know what I was going to tell you. I was going to show off. Oh, yes! Scrap Heap Challenge on Channel 4. Last Sunday's was the top show that was on Channel 4. This is with no PR, no publicity, no announcements, no trails, no nothing. It's beaten everything else that Channel 4 puts out on a Sunday night. Not that I want to gloat or go on, but there's other popular shows that have had huge amounts of publicity and pushing and articles and everything. They didn't do as well as old Scrappers, which is very, very encouraging. But it's very nice to know that show still holds up. So how do they do it? Very, very popular show on Channel 5. I'm going to be doing more of those later in the year. And Scrap Heap. So at the moment, if you live in the UK, you can see me on Sunday night and Monday night. Every week for the next 25 weeks. Oh yes. It's not of any great global import, I admit that. Gardening is much more important. The other thing that I'm really fascinated by, and I'd love to know what people think about that, is peak oil. Because I think peak oil, which I never really understood, but I read an amazing article in, of all things, the Guardian G2 section. There's a very interesting article about whether Italy is returning to fascism, but there's a thing in here about peak oil. Now, I don't know where it is. Maybe it isn't in this bit. Anyway, wherever it was, peak oil, which I didn't really understand before, but peak oil is where a lot of sort of strategists and people working in the petroleum industry and ecologists and scientists and all that stuff were predicting this thing called peak oil over the last sort of 10 years. And some people are saying it's going to be about 2050, some said it was going to be about 2020. Some people said it would be 2010, 11, something like that. They've now all agreed, it seems, that peak oil, which is basically... Oh, anyway, peak oil was reached last November, December of last year. Which is a little bit worrying, because what peak oil is that when the world produces the maximum amount of oil that it possibly can, and from that point on, production is decreasing. Which is what's happening now, which is why it's getting more expensive, which is why food costs more, which is why petrol costs more. Gas. In America, gas now costs $4 a gallon, is that right? Which, to us in England, is dirt cheap. Seriously dirt cheap. $4 a gallon is about, say, £2 a gallon. In this country, petrol is something around £6 or £7 a gallon. Because we sell it in litres, we don't know how much that is, but it's, believe me, it's around that price. So $4 a gallon would be just, £2 a gallon. God, that would be... That's like sort of 30p a litre. We haven't had that price since I started driving in the 1970s, so it's cheap over there, but it's doubled in the last 6 months, and it will double again. And what some people are predicting is that by, say, this time next year, gas in America will cost, say, $30 a gallon, and here it will cost, £50 a gallon. If that happens, it's not going to be good, is it? Let's be honest. Because I used to relish that prospect when I was a teenage rebel hippie. I wanted to see the kind of gross consumer, obscene, polluting, monstrous machine that was society crumble under the lack of oil because of all the stuff of the oil crashes of the early 70s, which the younger of you won't remember, but suddenly the lights went out and there was no petrol at the petrol stations, all that stuff. Now I'm a bit older, and much as I would still like to claim to be a liberal, wishy-washy, washed-out, sold-out eco-warrior, it's actually slightly worrying because even if people can't drive their huge 4x4s, okay, that's a small compensation, but we can't get food to supermarkets and shops, and we can't get travel, and we can't do anything. I mean, it's a huge, monstrous problem that the world is facing, and the thing is, we're not facing it. We're just looking the other way. We don't want to know. I sat in a traffic jam yesterday. Unfortunately, I had no choice. And this is no exaggeration. I did see, going in the opposite direction, in a traffic jam the other way. This is in a small town in the UK. We're not talking London. I saw 3 Land Rover Discoveries, large, heavy vehicles that use a lot of fuel, driving in the opposite direction in a row, 1, 2, 3. And in the rear of each car, there was a woman driving each car. And in the rear of each car, there was one child sitting in a Range Rover. Not a Range Rover, they were Discoveries. Very strange that they were all in a row. And then behind them, which was very interesting, was a really battered old Peugeot with rust and dents in the bonnet. It was a bit knackered. The number plate was hanging off at an angle on the front. And there was a woman driving that car, and there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kids in that car going to school. This was at the school run, which is why I was stuck in a traffic jam. What did that tell me? It told me something about our society, which I wasn't happy to see, and I didn't really want to make judgments on, because you can never judge people. I've judged people a lot, from the glance like that. I glance at something and then found out something about their families and their lives and who they are really, and then you go, oh, you can't do it. So peak oil, I'm going to do some more stuff about peak oil because I think it is interesting, and even the advent of electric vehicles and hydrogen and all those stuff, it's in such an early stage of its development. It would take a kind of cultural revolution, including violence and war, to change that technology. The petroleum companies are so dominant in the world, aren't they? I mean, we all know that. It's not a conspiracy theory. They're making so much money. The more expensive petrol gets, the more money they make. BP and Shell recently announced the most profit they've ever made in their history the last year, billions and billions of dollars. They're not going to want us to change. They want us to carry on using the fucking oil, no matter what happens, till they squeeze the last drip out of the last bit of hole in the ground. And, in a sense, the most revolutionary thing any of us can do is stop buying it. And how do you do that? It's just, we're stuffed. Unless we start walking. It's not looking good, is it? Let's be honest. But we've got to keep our chins up or our heads buried in the sand. And if you have been listening, YouTubers, thank you very much. And I will see you soon with a more cheery update. Take care.